Meine sehr geehrten Damen und Herren, verehrte Gäste, liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen, herzlich willkommen zur 10. Fachtagung bei der Polizeidirektion Heidelberg. Ich freue mich sehr, dass Sie so zahlreich unserer Einladung gefolgt sind. Das erste Mal ist es uns gelungen, dass wir jemand auch aus dem Ausland als Referent verpflichtet haben. Die Frage, ob wir es uns tatsächlich erlauben können, präventive Aktivitäten zurückzufahren, dürfte zumindest unter Experten, die mit offenen Ohren und Augen den Zustand unserer Gesellschaft wahrnehmen und einordnen, unstrittig mit Nein zu beantworten sein. Wir verfolgen in der Prävention seit Anfang an konsequent einen ganzheitlichen Ansatz und setzen einen deutlichen Schwerpunkt in der Jugendgewalt. Sonderausschuss des Landtags von Baden-Württemberg, Konsequenzen aus dem Amoklauf in Wenden und Wendlingen, Jugendgefährdung und Jugendgewalt, aber auch die Expertenkommission Amok, die sogenannte Andrioff-Kommission, haben sich in ihren Empfehlungen für eine Implementierung des Olweus-Programms als Best-Practice-Methode in Baden-Württemberg ausgesprochen. Ich glaube, das ist Auszeichnung in besonderem Maße für die Arbeit von Herrn Professor Olweus. Pragmatisch, wie wir sind, war es für uns folgerichtig, für die diesjährige Fachtagung den Versuch zu wagen, den verdienstvollen Urheber dieses so erfolgreichen Programms einzuladen. Sie sehen, es ist uns gelungen. Ich begrüße sehr herzlich in unserer Mitte Herrn Professor Dr. Bernd Olweus, Leiter des Research Center for Health Promotion von der Universität Bergen in Norwegen. Herzlich willkommen, Herr Professor Olweus. Vielen Dank.
Thank you very much for the invitation here and for the warm welcome I received here. It's, I think we have a lot of common interests really, but it's the first time I have been invited by a Polizeidirektion actually. So that shows me that you are in the forefront in many ways, and that you have an understanding of the importance of prevention. So I feel very well received here. To be exposed to bullying is a very hurtful and negative experience for a child, and it really often affects the rest of their lives actually. We have made interviews with people in who are 50, 60 years old, and they think almost every day of what happened in school. So this can be extremely hurtful, and we shouldn't forget them when we are discussing this at a more general and scientific level with definitions and graphs and so on. And it's not only German where you don't have an exact word for bullying. You have the same, for instance, in the Roman languages like Italian, Spanish, and France. But exposing to participating in bullying others, there's a very major sex difference. Boys are much more involved in behavior, in such behaviors, and this you see here, where the boys are 2-3 times higher than the girls. And also we have that data which are not shown here, but if you ask, there's been some discussion in the literature about that girls might be equally aggressive as boys. And in particular, if you take more subtle forms of bullying into account, like spreading rumors, backtalking, and social isolation, and so on. So some researchers, in particular in the US, have argued that girls are actually equally aggressive as the boys. But the data certainly do not support that. And one example of this is that if you look at the girls who are bullied, only about 25% of bullied girls say that they are mainly bullied by girls. Let me see. Germany is there actually. So, and the Eastern European countries like Lithuania, Estonia, and they are very high really in the level of these problems. The post-communist countries and the Scandinavian countries are typically rather low here. The situation is that often you have a problem that the bullies, they are stronger, they have status, they are often, the typical situation is that you have 2-3 bullies working together, and so the victimized child has no chance of defending himself or herself or asserting himself. So it's really not fair to say you should learn to stand up for your rights. So the school, the authorities, the adults must take responsibility with this. You cannot ask the students to handle this. And this is a key factor in our program, that the schools have, the adults at school have the major responsibility. And often don't have a single good friend, and they may relate better to adults than peers. If they're boys, they're often physically weaker than their peers. These are some broad characteristics of the typical victims, and they are not aggressive, not provocative in their behavior. And we will see later on that this is something which may follow them, as I just alluded to. But bullying is not something which occurs only for bullies and victims. It's important to realize that all the students in the classroom are affected by these problems. So I have made what is called the bullying circle. It's not really a good circle or horseshoe maybe. But anyhow, you see that here you have in the middle the victim, and you have the lead bully. The 2-3 bullies or a single bully can also do a lot of negative work, and often he has some followers, henchmen, he or she has that. And you have others who are supporters but passive bullies. You have those who are passive supporters. They like the bullying, but they don't display open support. You have a rather large group of disengaged onlookers. They take the attitude, they watch what happens, it's none of my business, I don't take a stand, and so on. You have those who dislike the bullying and think they ought to help, but they don't do it. And you have those, finally, those who are dislike the bullying and help to try to help. Also, if you have this occurring and the adults don't interfere and stop the bullying, this often will lead to a weakening of normal controls against aggressive tendencies. So many students may have aggressive tendencies, but they are kept in control. But when you see this occurring and the bullies are successful and don't get any kind of negative consequences, this will weaken the normal controls. But generally, it's important that you have involvement and awareness on the part of adults. So we, as I said, some intervention programs have, they put a lot of responsibility for the students, that the students should rein this, or you might have special mediators or other things. And so that's very important. If you have a conflict, it's more or less equal power and negotiation power of the parties and so on. And if you have, for instance, a mediation, the victims are often doomed to lose these kind of interactions, because the bullies, they are coordinated, there are several of them, they have status, and the victim is alone, and they say, oh, we just made a joke, and so on. So we are rather skeptical about that. So therefore the adults have absolute, I mean, of course it's extremely important to involve the students in different ways, but the major responsibility must lie with the adults.